As we open it up, I just welcome everybody to being here, and I'll ask Senator Jackson if he'll lead us in a word of prayer.
May we bow our heads? Lord, our Heavenly Father, Lord, our Savior, we come together this third day of February 2021 to say thank you for giving us life, to say thank you for giving us your heavenly breath that we can live this day. Lord, as we do the work for the people of Georgia, bless the legislators here assembled. Lord, bless your servants out in the audience. Lord, bless your servants that are on Zoom or on Facebook that are calling in to see that your will be done. Lord, as we look through legislation, let's think of you and your love for the people of Georgia, your love for children, your love for this world. Guide us. Let your will be our will. Thank you for giving us life. Thank you for being your servants. These and other blessings we ask in your heavenly name. We all say, amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. All right, we have two bills we consider today. We're going to have a hearing on Senate Bill 3, and I will go ahead and open it back up to you, Senator Jackson, to present your bill, and we will start from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, today we'll be hearing Senate Bill 3, LC 412670. This is a criminal justice reform bill that we have before you. And you ask, why do we have a criminal justice reform bill in education? Because I believe, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, that the two interact, criminal justice reform and education. Right now, currently, in our prisons, 50% of the prisons, the people incarcerated in the state prisons right now don't have a high school degree. And that's up from just a few years ago. 70% of the people in prisons didn't have a high school degree or a GED. Now, through the works of the prison system, they have did a valiant effort on helping inmates get a high school GED, and we commend them for that. But the root of the problem is that they're right now that if you're 16, you cannot vote in Georgia or in this country. If you're 16, you cannot drink any alcohol beverages. At 16, you cannot smoke. At 16, you cannot get a tattoo. At 16, you cannot get a credit card. At 16, you really cannot get a reasonable paying job. Anything not much more than a minimum wage. But you can drop out of high school at 16. When we allow people to drop out of high school at 16, we do a disservice to the people of this great state. We do a disservice to the people of this country because it is very difficult to find a livable wage when you don't have a GED or a high school diploma. You can't even join the military if you drop out of high school. You can't join the military if you have a GED. We have to help our children help themselves. When we allow young people to drop out of high school, it adds to the juvenile detention rate, it adds to the jail population rate, it adds to our prison rates, it adds to young teen pregnancy. And we need to do what we can to help the people of Georgia grow and aspire. So I think, I can say a lot of other things, but we need to increase the high school dropout rate from 16 to 17 to give young people an opportunity to succeed, to be citizens that they're not dependent on our state, but they'll be taxpayers for this great state. I could talk about a lot of other things, but this General Assembly task is to help Georgia grow. If we allow students to stay in high school, to get a high school diploma, they'll be able to find better jobs. They'll be able to find trade jobs with skills. They will have opportunities not only to help them, but to help their future families. If we allow them to continue to drop out, we just keep on adding to the problem. And that's it, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's a very simple bill. It increased the high school dropout age from 16 to 17. I think it's a time that has come for the state of Georgia. For the new legislators, we did this, the high school dropout age, we allow kids to drop out of school at 16. I think we did that back in the 40s. Am I right, Mr. Chairman Tippins? That happened in the 40s, correct?
I was not here then.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. For some reason, I just thought you were around.
Feel like it. Today's one of them.
But that was when most of Georgia was a largely agricultural community, and we need young people to leave school so they can work on their family farms or work on their neighbors' farms, earn an income, and start their lives. That's not the case right now. 80% of the jobs that's done in Georgia has to require some sort of technical skill, some sort of skill with at least an advanced degree of high school diploma. We need to help our young kids to help themselves. And I humbly ask, sir, that you study this idea, that we look at it, we come back at sometimes during this session, and we begin the process of moving Georgia forward. We're only one of 15 states that allow young people to drop out at 16. The other 14 states are not as large, not as technological savvy, and don't have a vision to move this country forward and our citizens forward. And that's it, Mr. Chairman. I yield for questions.
Thank you. Have any questions? Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thank you for bringing this bill forward. I did the same exact bill in front of this committee in 2011, and I commend you for it. And to add to it, isn't it true that we don't let a 16-year-old go into a rated R movie by themselves?
You are correct, sir.
Isn't it true we also don't let them get a full driver's license at 16 years old? They have to be restricted, yet they can drop out of school. Is that also true?
That is, sir. There are so many things that we allow these people that they can't do at 16, but we're going to allow. But they also, if I add, Mr. Chairman Evers, you as a parent, you also are responsible for the young person up until the age of 17. But they can drop out, but the parent is still responsible for their actions.
Well, and if I could, one more comment/question. Raise your hand if anybody here has teenage kids or had teenage kids. Okay, so for a 16-year-old, they might come down any given morning and they may say, I have no friends in the entire world and I hate life. And then 3 minutes later, they may say, I have the best friends in the world and I have the best life. I love you, Mom and Dad. I wish I lived on the other side of the country than you, Mom or Dad. I hate all the food you cook for breakfast. Can I have seconds? Right? I don't ever want to get a driver's license. Can I go get my test tomorrow? You know what we call that as parents? Tuesday. Right? Mm-hmm. At 16 years old, you are so right. Kids are not anywhere developed, and what you're bringing up about criminal justice is important. And the statistics are staggering. For a kid that does not graduate from high school, you're so spot on, Senator. The chance of them ending up in the criminal justice system and needing to be taken care of by society, as opposed to contributing to society through the rest of their lives, will cost this state 10 times as much money. So it is cheaper to educate than incarcerate. So thank you for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you.
Yes. He said yes.
Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jackson, for bringing this bill forward. It's a bill I like. I believe we passed it last year, or at least had some good, robust hearings on it. Mm-hmm. And I find it interesting that, as Chairman Albert says, it's been around for quite some time. And so I was trying to sort out in my mind why we have not done this yet and why we would be sort of one of only a number of states that haven't moved our dropout age up, and wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there's a cost attached to keeping young people in from 16 to 17 across the state, and that cost is $20 million. It costs the state and school districts, when you add it all together, an extra $20 million to keep a young person in school an extra year. That may drop out, and I don't know who would add it up, but they put a price ticket on if we allow young people to stay in school, it's another cost of $20 million. But I tell you, and I work in the criminal justice system, I work in a jail, and I poll young men and young girls when they come in. I ask, how old are you? Do you have a high school diploma? And the facility I work at, 80% of them don't have a high school diploma. And I tell you, had we done something to keep them in school, they wouldn't be getting into trouble that they get into. But your answer is it's about a $20 million cost. But it costs 5 times as much to have that young person incarcerated in a jail or a prison.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Jackson,
Yes, sir.
is it or is it not true that would not be a $20 million cost, but a $20 million investment?
I agree, sir. I agree, but that's what I got from the physical. They said the cost, but it's an investment. We're investing in Georgia's future by keeping these young people in school. And I may say everybody may not need a traditional track, but we can identify these young men, these young ladies, put them in a non-traditional program where they earn a technical skill and put them out in the workforce, so they be a asset to our state instead of a detriment to our state.
Now, a follow-up question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
We did this bill last year, right?
Yes, sir. We did this bill last year.
We did. Did we do a hearing only, or did we pass it out?
Well, we did a hearing only last year. It was close to getting passed out, but we did a hearing only. But we have a new chairman now, and I'm gonna tell you, he is a great chairman. He's good for Georgia. He's good for Georgia. I just have a feeling that that at some point this year we're gonna have a vote on this bill, and he's gonna move not for this committee but for the state.
And the word on the streets, he worked in juvenile justice at some
And
point.
the word on the street, he knows something about this. People being incarcerated.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Do we have a sign-up sheet? Yes, sir.
I ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Did you, Senator Jackson, did you actually get a physical note, or was that just an estimate, or have you?
I got a
have you
physical note
have
2
you got
years-
a number of students
Well-
that they estimate it would be?
I forgot. I had the physical note 2 years ago,
Right.
and it was 18.5 million 2 years ago. So I would suspect 2 years later. I haven't got a physical note this year, but I will get a physical note, Mr. Chairman.
I've actually requested a fiscal note on this bill, so
Okay.
I haven't gotten it yet, but I've already requested one.
Okay. Well, we're just hearing it only.
I don't know who's causing that. Is it me? We do have a couple of,
Let me ask another line of question, if you don't mind. I think the concerns that have been expressed in the past is that we have more of an interest dropout, or the reason.
Senator Jackson, his mic is still on. Mr. Chairman.
Basically, we have an interest dropout. Kids lose interest in school and they're gone. I think the flip side of what we're talking about is you can mandate that they stay in school if they've lost interest. It's questionable how much profitability it's going to be. Are they going to just be putting in time until they're 17? What I appreciate that us having just a hearing only on it. I'm working on a bill right now that I think may help this a lot. I really don't believe that the majority of the people dropping out of high school are on a university or a college track. If they were, they'd probably be in high school and have to, because they realize the necessity of education. I'm going to try to craft a bill that we can set up a high school graduation program that's administered through the technical college system, whereas we can utilize Senate Bill 2 and cut down on the number of academic courses they absolutely have to take if they're in a technical pathway, and they can get their high school or finish their high school diploma in the technical college. The technical college can award the diploma and also give them training at the same time. I think the the dynamics of the financial side of it are better that way. I also think that the problematic piece of people going into high school for the academic piece and going to technical college to get the remainder of their training under Senate Bill 2 is a problem. I really think this will be a solution, and I hope to have it to be able to roll out to the committee in a week or 10 days. But it's, I understand the issue. I just think if we continue to do the same thing, we can probably expect the same results. I think we're going to have a different approach to it. I like the idea. I think we probably need to do some intense evaluation of what the individual skills are to help them make informed career choices. I think just saying you've got to go to technical college, they probably don't have any more idea about what they could be good at than they are making an informed decision about whether they need to stay in high school or not. So I think these are people, we're going to have to put some resources in on the counseling end of it, on the front end. But I really think if we can give them career training, give them a truncated high school experience so they're not in an environment that they obviously don't like, but maybe get them in a course of study that appeals to their interest and their abilities, we'll actually get a much greater return on investment, and I think we'll realize it sooner. If you look at what we're doing in the Department of Corrections, we're trying to get people a functional high school diploma. We're trying to get them vocational training so they can go into the workforce. I think this bill will be addressing it on the front end before prison instead of on the back end after prison. So that's kind of where my mind is and where I'm trying to go with legislation. I don't have it perfected yet, but it will be coming shortly. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Jackson, I think I asked this question last year. It's like deja vu. This is I think to piggyback on what Senator Tippins is saying. I'm not sold that this is binary. We either keep them in school until 17 or they wind up in jail. And I think that this is often pitched, like many things in our world, is in the extremes. What I would be interested to know, and the data has to be out there. We have states, 35 states, you said, to keep them in school until 17 or 18. We're one of 15 to keep them there till 16. I would like to see the incarceration rate of the dropouts at 16 in the 15 states versus the incarceration rate of the dropouts in 17. I would suspect that it's similar, to which I would say, if the goal is to help these people find better jobs, why not force them to graduate? Why not force them to get all the way through? Why would we even allow them to drop out at 17? Because what we do have the data on is a high school dropout will earn $9,200 less a year than a high school graduate. We have the data that a high school dropout will earn $1 million in their lifetime less than a college graduate. So, to me, I ask the question a little bit differently, maybe than what's been discussed so far, and that is, I think you either push it all the way or you allow the kids that don't want to be there, not force them to be there. So I would love when and if the chairman does bring this back, to see raw data on the incarceration rate of 16-year-old dropouts versus 17-year-old dropouts, so that we really know that we're dealing with the hard numbers as opposed to perhaps theory.
Be one reason that Senator Jackson has presented to us that it can produce mass incarceration at an early age. But there are other reasons for compulsory attendance at school, or why kids don't go, or why they drop out. And one of them may be because they have to work. They may have to help support the family. A lot of times we get laser focused on one issue rather than looking at the entire picture. And most certainly, there are many reasons, having been in education for a very long time, and I don't think I've ever exited it, for children to become dropouts. So I wanted to just make that statement. So we would not just focus on one issue and look at some other things that may impact a child's life and subsequently he or she has to drop out of school.
That is primarily why I wanted to have a hearing only and to continue to look at this, because I think we need to study it. I mean, as a sense, because I think the evidence is there that, literally, like I said, if we can provide for these kids of the next generation a sense of understanding for their education, because as I tell people all the time, I said, at 16 years old, if I were judged by how I thought when I was 16, God forbid. And so I think that's true for everybody in this room. And so at the same time, we know that, you really don't start looking through the world as through eyes of an adult until you're really in your mid-20s. One day you wake up, and I used to tell my probation kids this all the time. I said, literally, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to think, my God, my mom is the smartest person on the face of the earth. And I said, that don't happen when you're 18. It don't happen when you're 19. It don't happen when you're 20. It's just literally that age of maturity and responsibility. And so literally, that's why I wanted to have a hearing, so we could literally talk of all facets. Maybe what can we do looking forward to bring to light what we can change that brings on that sense of responsibility and maturity earlier in age. Because even the generations before us, it's always amazed me, the people, that generation we call the greatest generation, a 15-year-old of that generation was more mature than probably most 25-year-olds are today. And so, it is that sense of understanding that, we got to look at it as a big picture rather than small picture. And so, let's see. Senator Anavatari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to take Senator Sims' point a little further. I think this is beyond just moving the age, Senator Jackson, from just 16 to 17. I think this is a discussion where do we want these individuals to literally succeed in life? And I think there's more than just, I think, the cost. Because I think to where I think Senator Sims was going, I think there's a bigger cost here, and part of me, I don't have a position on this, but part of me says, just being around technical education, my family, my father was worked as a mechanic in the trucking industry. My brother was a mechanic. My grandfather worked in the Stanley Tool Mill in Connecticut, and I think we get to a point where we need to expose them, as Senator Tippin says, to trade, education, if they want to start a business. But for the individual and the family member, in terms of where they're at in life, do they have substance abuse issues? Do they have mental health issues? Do they not have a car? Do they not have all of these things? Whether we change the age, if we don't address those other issues around them, and truly build a pathway for them to be successful, I think at the end of the day, this is not going to be effective. So I think one of the challenges I would challenge the committee, and just for discussion, is to think about how are we setting up this individual to not just be successful and get their GED. While a GED is important, quite frankly, in a global economy, a GED, we all know, is pretty worthless in terms of how do we really get somebody to basically live out their dreams and aspirations, provide for their family, and we talk about even generational poverty, lift those families up to kind of go to that next level, and in some cases survive. So I think this is an awesome discussion. I think we need to continue this discussion, but think even more broadly for the individuals or, these kids, what are the impacts also on the family? Being at a young age at 16, 17, I know what I was doing at 16 and 17, and I was very blessed to be around hardworking parents and had parents that were going to kick my butt if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Not every kid has that opportunity right now in this world, and I think we have to kind of, in some cases, build those structures to make sure they're going to be set up for success, I think, kind of going forward. So, but I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward so we can have this discussion.
Yes, Senator, I'm not saying this raising the dropout age is a cure-all, but it is one more step to add in the process of giving young people opportunities. And what we're talking about are not kids. These are young adults. When you talk about 16-year-old people, they're young adults. They can be charged for murder as an adult if they get in trouble. You know, if you could commit one of the 5 deadly sins, they're tried as an adult. What we want to do is start the process of giving them opportunities to succeed in life, but allowing them to drop out. And I agree with Senator Tippins, but allowing them to drop out along with counseling and giving them technical education and looking at their, and looking one-on-one, looking at their backgrounds and their situation, we can help them. But just stop and say, 16, you can walk out a high school door and never come back. Don't hurt them, it hurts this entire state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We do have a couple of questions. I mean, a couple of people would like to speak to the bill. Let's go and call Robert Buddy Cosley. Yes, sir, to the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate the opportunity to share just a couple things. You know, we are not in support or opposition to the bill. I think what we wanted to offer from the Georgia Association of Educational Leaders is a couple of implications that you may want to consider as you study this process. You know, I represent, my members are school superintendents, school principals, assistant principals, and the state, who will be supervising and trying to enforce, you know, this goal. Let me first say that Gail is totally 1,000% in support of any initiative to raise the graduation rate in the state of Georgia. Keeping kids off the street, I think, is what we do for a living, and trying to make sure that they accomplish their dreams. However, talking about keeping them out of jail, prison, which we all agree on, one thing that I wanted to bring up for your consideration and study is that if you raise the compulsory age for attendance, what we're affecting is a whole different set of processes that are not covered in the bill, and that's the truancy process in Georgia, the attendance protocol task force process in Georgia. As you know, most local communities, or every community is required by law to have attendance task force that have to be staffed by people, resources, and the juvenile court system is involved in that task force system. What we don't want to happen because of the culture in Georgia is if we raise the age to 17 and we therefore are adding to the caseload of social workers, which are few and far between in Georgia, there's not enough of them, who are spending that time trying to chase down the 14-year-olds and the 12-year-olds and the 8-year-olds and the parents that are not getting the younger kids into school, and we add the 16-year-olds to that who do have partial driver's licenses, then we don't want more 16-year-olds going to jail that would not have gone to jail, or their parents going to jail because juvenile court processes, attendance protocol processes that definitely need to be considered in terms of, to the binary point of Senator Dozal, is there's no doubt that we would prefer that our kids stick around and fight it out till 17, but to study the auxiliary processes that are going to be definitely related to that and support that, I don't know that we've had a chance to really think about that. And finally, the discipline piece, I think there's a big difference between a 16-year-old with 3 credits and a 16-year-old with 10 credits who, if they stick around another year, can make it. You know, our teachers and principals, there are discipline issues and family issues that do occur if you force a 16-year-old to stay in the school who has 3 credits and might not mathematically be able to graduate even if he or she stays another year. Again, the hard part for us is to share these concerns about the bill without saying that we don't support, without implying that we don't support raising the graduation rate or keeping them in school. So if we can find a way to consider those processes, we just want to put that under advisement. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Your organization is Gale?
Yes, ma'am.
I was a member of Gale years ago. Now, what I'm hearing is more of why we can't rather than why we can. I'm just, putting it out there. And I want to give you an example of something that has happened within my district over the last few weeks. Last year, we were able to get enough monies to take to my district for a tutorial program. math tutorial. And we know that it's very difficult to find math teachers in rural parts of the state, let alone urban parts of the state. 4 counties were to share those dollars. I met with those superintendents first. Some principals, you know, some superintendents like to send their curriculum directors. They don't come. And of the 4, only one of them decided to, implement the program. So when I look at leadership in schools, which, and I'm not beating up on leaders because there's some good and there's some bad. What are we thinking when we come and say we have to look at this protocol, that protocol, but I'm not saying that I'm against the bill. It sounds very much like you're giving us excuses as to why you can't do this rather than why you can. The leadership of any district should be the determining factor as to how well disciplinary programs work, how well anything works. And if they cannot get it done, then we replace them. So I'm kind of disappointed that I hear this, rather than we can work with you all and find ways to, and every child is not dropping out because he or she has fewer credits or that person is headed towards jail or prison. There are many reasons as to why children drop out. Some of them drop out because they don't like the principal. They don't get along. They don't have, the school climate is not good for them. So there are many reasons as to why children leave the school. And I think that's what we need to look at, rather than it's going to be a burden on the district, it's going to be a burden on the teachers, he or she will be a burden on the leadership in the building. When you take an oath or you take that job, your responsibility is to make sure that it works as much as possible for everybody in that building. Now, at the end of the day, it's not going to be that way. But we are certainly hoping that we can hear what you can do to make it work.
I say, as a fellow middle school principal myself, what we're here to do today is not tell you why something won't work. You know, it's just in terms of, you and I have made school handbooks for our whole career and student handbooks. Is anytime you make a policy, we want to make sure you are adequately informed of the processes that will be affected by that policy. And I would say, as a colleague of yours, our leaders stand by and are working their tails off to get that graduation rate up, and are not making excuses, but do want to properly advise you of things that will be affected. And we do not want a student going to jail or his mom and daddy going to jail, which is a legitimate part of the truancy process. And it will be a significant change for Georgia that I think we need to study and at least prepare for if we make this decision. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Scott Bierman with the Georgia School Board Association. I appreciate you having me here today. The membership of the Georgia School Board Association in their legislative priorities supports raising the age from 16 upwards. They acknowledge, kind of to Buddy's point a minute ago, this is not going to be a magic bullet. This isn't going to cure all of our issues overnight, but this is a step to take to maybe having another year of these students in the classroom. Maybe you can spark something. Maybe you can get them to stick around to get to graduation. It takes creativity and it takes some ingenuity at times to try to do that, but our school board members are committed to getting there and committed to the success of their students. So they support this bill, and I'm happy to be up here today. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Start a conversation, just at least to look at the bigger picture, that what we can do to improve not only, graduation rates, but also, you know, considering what we're doing for kids and how we can better serve those kids and get them properly educated for. So we'll go ahead and move on to Senate Bill 42. After our last meeting, you have 2 LCs in your folders, and I'm also just going to treat this as a hearing only also but I want to bring this back and look at the language that the Senator had changed and come back to working with others, and that is an LC 49031-4S. And then we've had a second one, and this is Senator Tippins, was LC 49030S. And so, Senator Tippins, would you like to speak to your?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, is this a vote?
No, we're not going to take action on this today. I just wanted to continue and just get this updated, but I think this needs more study. I think that we need to look at this because to make sure that we're better knowledgeable about what we're actually doing, because there was some information that came out in the last hearing that I came to realize was not accurate information. So I want to make sure that everybody's understanding before we do anything that we're actually knowing what we're doing.
Okay.
Senator Tippins.
Looking at ALC 49030, the takeaway from what I heard in the discussion 2 days ago was that the reporting of discipline in the school climate rating was could act as a disincentive to educators actually exercising discipline and needed discipline not happening. Also balance that with the reality that the public has a right to know what the climate within an existing school is, what the discipline situation is within a school. So I tried to craft a bill. It was my understanding from Senator Mullis that if it was removed from the calculation of the school climate, which was a part of the 5-star efficiency rating, it has nothing to do with CCRPI except tangentially it touches on the leader evaluation that feeds into CCRPI, but it's negligible in the effect that it has. But if you look at line 13, this was added. Each local school system shall make available for public inspection and copying at no cost to the requester copies of the reported information provided for in subsection A and B of this code section. Each school within a local school system shall make available and for public inspection and copying at no cost to the requester copies of the reported information provided for in subsections A and B as related to such school. So this provides for the reporting of the school's performance in or the school's history of discipline at the school and the district's history of discipline. That's a compilation of all the schools within the district. This reporting is required by the state. This reporting would continue to be required by the state. You go down to line 35, and this was the language in the original bill, the sole language of the strikes on line 34 and part of 35, and then the underlined portion provided, however, that the school climate determination shall not include student discipline data. Then we added on lines 49 through 53, data and information regarding the student discipline shall be included in the annual report provided for in paragraph 2 of subsection A of code section 20-14-27. Nothing in this code section shall be construed to relieve any school system or school administrator or personnel from any obligation to report a violation of a code of student conduct as provided for by law or by policy. So bottom line, The reporting of the discipline will continue as it was because it is mandated by law. It goes to the state. I think it's also a federal requirement that this discipline is forwarded to the federal government. But that reporting will continue to happen, but instead of it, it will not be used in the calculation of the school climate rating or in the 5-star rating. But it will be available at school, at each individual school as it becomes available. And it's available there because that's where the information originates. So it will be there upon request at no cost. My feeling is this: if, you know, really and truly, if you're going to have a school climate rating and discipline's not going to be a part of it, I don't know. You can look at other factors, and if they're enumerated, you can look at it. But clearly, discipline is a big issue. So while this is transparent, it is not taking into consideration a calculation of the school climate rating. That's what this bill does. That was pretty much the distillation of the comments that I heard and concerns that I heard the other day.
Do you have a question?
No, sir.
Senator Jackson.
No, I'm Senator Parent.
Oh, Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually, if it's with the chairman's indulgence, I wanted to make a brief statement because I actually have to run back across the street for a virtual parent-teacher conference for my 4th grader. So I just wanted to thank the chairman for his work and everyone who's been working on this issue, and just state that I think my heartburn, and I shared this with the proponents of the bill, comes from the fact that if you just even briefly look into school discipline and school climate, you will find that there's reams of research about how school discipline and its practices inform the climate of a school and lead to the ultimate success or failure of the students within that school. And that is, of course, going to be all the more important for kids from more troubled backgrounds, right, who are not going to leave all the things that they have to cope with at home or in the community when they show up in the school doors. So to me, it seems like, given all that and given like all the work we as a legislature and a government have done on trying to move more in the direction of PBIS and recognizing that discipline does have the type of discipline and culture cultivated in a school building does have ramifications. I understand that that a problem has been identified, and I'm not at all denying the problem as it relates to maybe underreporting or not being able to properly discipline students. But to me, the way the bill is really just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because there are good reasons that it matters what the discipline is like. So just and having the fact is that school discipline is related to school climate. It is. And so if you just totally divorce them, then what you did is, to solve one problem, you threw the baby out with the bathwater. So I think that we need to have a finer point on understanding what we can do to solve the one problem without just saying, well, we're just going to divorce these two things, because I don't think we can or should, because the way discipline is approached is a big part of school climate. So that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. What number are you? Number 11.
11.
Go ahead.
I think maybe to piggyback on what Senator Parent said, because I'm also struggling with this, and it does seem that we are dissecting two pieces from each other, and therefore getting rid of the accountability piece, because for me, there is the question around tracking, which is in fact resolved in this substitution that we just talked about. And I think that that's critical and urgent and important for all of the reasons, why people do need to be able to know what's happening in the school, and that does need to be reported and tracked. For me, however, it's the accountability piece that gets lost. If it's not part of the school climate rating, then where's the accountability in that? What is the action beyond that? So we're tracking data, and we'll understand that things are going poorly or well in terms of disciplinary actions in a school, but it leads to what? If there is nothing that, if there's nothing that the school is going to have happen beyond the report. Here's the report, it's great. The school climate rating provided for some accountability and for some way that a school would then have to talk about and maybe even pursue different ways of actually doing the discipline that they do and justifying what they're doing. So I just want to add that it's that accountability piece that for me I think is missing in any of the iterations that we've seen so far.
Well, thank you. And I'll just go ahead and add the LC 49031-4S is the one that Senator Mullis, the author of the bill, has worked on to address some of the concerns. Like I said, I don't think we'll take any action on, we won't take any action on this today regardless either LC, but I think just to at least have everyone on the committee cognizant of what's being presented as the change. And as you can see on line 25, that's where he's made additional changes to the bill. So I'll just let you read those for yourselves. Are there any questions on that, LC, or concerns or thoughts or comments? Hearing none, we will just let this rest there. And if there's no other questions or comments, then we will call this meeting adjourned. First, before we do that, were there any sign-ups to speak to this bill?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Caroline Durham with Georgia Appleseed. I had notified the staff that
I'm sorry? Okay, and who are you with?
Good afternoon. Caroline Durham, the Legal and Policy Director with Georgia Appleseed Center for Law and Justice.
Okay.
I had three different points I thought I would raise today, but given the amendments that are there, I just want to raise one piece to make the committee aware of. The school climate rating was created by the Georgia Department of Education, and it was done in working with Georgia State University and University of Connecticut, which is their premier place for school climate ratings. It is a metric that has been worked through, verified, and determined that it is reliable. And so what this bill proposes is removing one variable within that metric. And the question becomes, and if you look at the way the survey works, there are different components. The school discipline piece, different types of offenses are ranked certain ways. When you look at the writing, it takes us back to algebra. If we pull out one variable from the metric that is used to determine the school rating without understanding the implication, it's problematic and something that needs to be explored. A couple of years ago, the Georgia Department of Education actually looked into this to see what happens if you pull that particular variable from the metric. How does that apply and make the school climate rating reliable at all? They found a couple of things. One is that there was an increase, improvement in school climate ratings for some of the middle and high schools. There was a decrease in others. The real impact was in the school climate ratings for elementary schools, who actually have a much lower out-of-school suspension rate. One of the senators mentioned that the way in which the discipline takes place matters, and that's part of what the school climate rating looks like. And so I raised that in part to simply say we're going to take out this component and not look that it's actually a validated formula that has been tested and is utilized by not just the Georgia Department of Education. It's used by DBHDD for comparisons, and so it takes away the ability to do comparisons. It is problematic. And I bring this in part, so Georgia Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, we focus on dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline. Once we've done that, we're also looking to how do we support children in school? Because what we know is when Georgia's children thrive, Georgia thrives. We are the backbone organization for the Georgia Education Climate Coalition that brings together agencies, organizations, educators that have been working for more than 10 years around the issue of school climate. And so it's not as simple as saying we're just going to take it out and have transparency somewhere else. We take away the validity of the ranking system that the school climate ranking is there. And we take away the ability of the Georgia Department of Education, of superintendents and teachers to be able to identify where are there supports that need to be done? Where do we need to lift up these schools so that the children thrive? What we have seen in the utilization of the school climate ranking is the integration of PBIS. PBIS, and there's on the data point with the Georgia Department of Education, from 2007 through 2017, the utilization of the school climate ranking system in integrating and implementing PBIS, a research-validated school-based framework for improving school climate, there was a 34% reduction in yearly suspensions across the state of Georgia. That is what our parents want to be able to know, is what's happening within the walls of the schools they are choosing to send their children to. How do we know that teachers are safe? They deserve to have that. Teacher retention rates go up when school climate goes up. Teacher job satisfaction goes up. And so I raised that particular issue on this day, giving consideration for the changes that are being made that will be considered, so that you as a committee can make the best decision for Georgia's children. Thank you.
I believe Senator Sims has got a question for you.
And it may be toward the Board of, Matt, where's Matt? How much does PBS cost the state of Georgia annually? How much do we pay for that program?
I would have to get you a number overall, because there's federal funds as well as state funds.
Okay, that much, huh?
Sorry.
That much?
Yeah, we have a considerable grant from the federal government as well for PBS.
I'll wait for you to,
Sure, and we can get you the number.
thank you. That was it.
Yes. Yes, hi. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for allowing public comments. My name is Pamela Perkins-Carn, and I'm the co-convener of End Mass Incarceration Georgia Network. We're a network of over 400 individuals and organizations who are focused on juvenile and criminal justice reform, as well as education reform as it affects children in the school-to-prison pipeline. One of the facts that may not be known about the school discipline piece being included in the school climate rating is that that was brought about by parents, a coalition of parents who came to the Department of Education and advocated for the school discipline to be included in the school climate rating. And so this is not something that a department thought of on its own in a vacuum. This actually came from the community. And so when we hear that there are those who say, we don't want the school discipline to be included in the rating, you're negating the parents who actually came to advocate on behalf of their children. And that is not something we want to have happen, because we always hear about lack of parent engagement, lack of parent involvement. You're actually negating that engagement and involvement. Those parents came to the Department of Education with their concerns. And so we ask you to do what Gary McGivney said in that video that we sent to you, to be collaborative and to be purpose-driven when making decisions of this magnitude that affects all of Georgia's children and removes the parents from their role of being the advocates for their children. Thank you so much, and we look forward, hopefully, to working with you on this bill.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I don't have a sign-up sheet, so. All right, seeing none, like I said, we'll just go ahead and leave this on the table for right now and maybe take it up at a later date. But just thank you everybody for coming, and we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.